Hi guys, it's me, Rusty 78609, Central Texas, USA. It is 3:41 p.m. Central Standard Time, and this is TC. This is IT. That is an IT. TC stands for Trenton Clump, Sir Trenton Clump. He is my advisor, so to speak. For those of you that have recently subscribed, you may know that I have full-time RV. I live in an RV now. This is my luxurious studio in my 26-foot RV. I also go camping in a Toyota Prius periodically. I'm age 71 and I know it. I feel it. So, anyway, it's actually a pretty day for this time of the year. And I was going through some comments looking for a reason to do a video because I don't have anything else to do and I hate to watch TV. I'm watching golf on TV, but that's kind of like watching, I guess you would say it's kind of like watching mud dry or grass grow or something like that. Not much excitement in golf. It's about like baseball. But anyway, having said that, I ran across a few comments actually back when, and people, I used to just drive around and I'd just ramble on, about stuff that happened when I was a kid, and apparently a few people kind of liked that, and so it occurred to me that there is an interesting story, something that happened to me when I was age 12, and has stuck in my mind all these years, and I'll relate that story to you now. Again, I grew up on a little farm it was a small farm in South Texas, and it was hard to say if we were poor or not. We had food to eat, and mother made our clothes. From some of it was made from feed sacks because the feed sacks, the bags of feed that you bought for the animals, sometimes had patterns on it, and mother would actually make some of my shirts to wear to school from those feed sacks. So I've worn feed sack clothes, and I've picked cotton and done all the stuff that you do on a farm. And but anyway, this occurred when I was again 12 years old. That would have been 1957, and we lived close to uh, kind of not a major highway, but it was a fairly busy road. It was Highway 181. Ran from, you could go from Kennedy, Texas, all the way to the coast, or the Corpus Christi, Texas. I think on 181. You go through Beeville and some other little towns. But anyway, and we were within a mile or so of that highway, and so if anything happened there, you could hear it because we lived up on a hill that had a beautiful view too. I remember that, and we had no air conditioning, no TV, no radio. Well, might have had a radio. I don't remember it. We were always outdoors. But anyway, this was on a Sunday, and on Sundays, my mother and daddy went to church. I'm not religious. I'm not into that at all, and I don't know why they were. And after church, they'd usually have some people come over, and mother would fry up some chicken. My brother and I would go kill a couple of hens, and she'd fry them up. So, but that's not the story. But it did occur on Sunday because there were some people around, and my cousin was over. He was about 4 years older than I was, but I had a Cushman Eagle motor scooter at that time, and I was proud of it. It was a red Cushman Eagle motor scooter, and that was the greatest thing in the world to me. So anyway, we were standing there, sitting out on the patio, or we didn't have a patio, we had a front porch, and we were out there on the front porch because again there was no air conditioning. It was probably a warm day. It seemed like it was always hot, and we heard what sounded like an explosion on the highway, the Highway 181. And I waited a few seconds. And, I looked around, and I was waiting for some smoke because it sounded like something blew up. Uh, but it didn't. Well, we didn't see anything. So then my cousin and I got on my motor scooter. He rode in the back, and away we go down the road. Got on the Highway 181, heading in the direction we heard the sound, heard the noise, and we didn't go far. It was about 2 miles or 3 miles down the highway or less, maybe. It wasn't very far. And there were two cars that had hit. It was an automobile accident. I mean, two cars had hit perfectly head on. I mean, headlight to headlight. And the amazing part of this story is they were both new 1957 Fords. That was amazing. In fact, I even looked at the odometer, and one of them had like less than 500 miles, and the other one had like 2,500 miles. I mean, I don't know why I did that, but I was impressed with the fact that they were new cars. But the story is, and this is true, we were the first ones on the scene. My cousin and I were the very first ones on the scene of the accident. Everybody was dead. Okay, there were four people in one car and five in the other, 9 people. But I remember there was a girl in the passenger seat of one. The cars were just crushed. I mean, you would not believe it. But back then, cars didn't have what they call crumple zones. You know, they were built like tanks. I mean, the impact was horrendous. And so there was one girl, she had a big spot on her head, like a hole in her head. And I won't be too gruesome or graphic, but I want to give you what I was seeing. And she was leaned against the dash, and she started to raise up, and then she fell forward. Apparently, she died. I don't know, because I wasn't a doctor, but I mean, and I was basically in shock. I mean, and but I did just naturally see if I could help anybody. You know, there was the driver of one vehicle was pinned in, but he wasn't making any noise. I was scared to move him, afraid I'd make it worse because the door was open, and you could see that he was just crumpled in I mean, just, the steering wheel was, anyway, it was a mess. And in the other car, there was a guy in the back seat, and he's still alive. And I remember it was a two-door car. The car they were in was in a two-door, and he reached up to the seat, the front seat, raised himself up, and I thought, well, good, he's still alive. And then he just fell back. I thought, well, maybe he's just unconscious or whatever. Well, anyway, then, about that time, some more people showed up. And back then, we didn't have EMS. You didn't have, we had one city policeman and one highway patrolman in that whole area. And I had to send my cousin, when one of the cars came up, it was actually his stepdad, or whatever you call it, because they adopted him, I guess, his dad. And they went to a nearby home and made a phone call and notified the police or policeman, and then within a few minutes, or probably 20 minutes to get there. But anyway, all they had was a hearse. They didn't have ambulances like you have now with 40 million lights and all this stuff that come racing up. The ambulance in town was the hearse from the funeral home. That was it, and they only had one. And so, you got 9 people out there that need to be rushed to the hospital, and that was nothing. In fact, what they did, they commandeered a couple of back then they had cars called station wagons. They had room in the back to put stuff, and some of them had seats that would actually fold down. And but anyway, my cousin's dad had a station wagon, and so whenever the police arrived, and then a doctor came out, and they started putting the people into the cars and taking them to our little hospital in Kennedy. But there were only 2 doctors. There was Dr. Mills and Dr. Bonstetter, and maybe there was 3. But anyway, who knows where they were at that time of day. But it just shows you how different not only the technology of the automobile was. I mean, there were no crumple zones. There was no padded dash. There was no soft steering wheel, collapsible steering wheel. None of that. None of that was there. No, and they may have had seat belts. I'm not sure. I don't think so. I don't think they had seat belts in the cars then. They may have, but it probably wasn't a law to wear them. And I know they didn't have the shoulder harness. Now, they could have just had the regular seat belt. But be that as it may, here I am, 12 years old, and of course I had seen this Mexican man that worked on our farm dead a couple of years earlier, and so I knew what dead was. And but I mean, there is a smell too. You know, I can't. Never mind. I won't get into about people in combat, but uh, it's just a real odd feeling. But the differences in the way things were then and the way they are now, it's light years difference. Because if you had an accident like that now, you would have EMS on the scene. You would have 14 DPS. I don't know how many fire trucks. Not much telling what you'd have. Excuse me, but you'd have the traffic would be blocked. I don't even know that they had any uh, cones. Safety cones to put out because I don't remember anybody. There was somebody that was waving traffic over into another lane because what happened apparently is one car was coming over a hill and the other car going up the hill had somehow drifted over into that other lane. Now, what caused that, we don't know. I don't think there was any alcohol involved, but they hit perfectly, headlight to headlight. The impact was so powerful that the man in one of the cars that was had driving had on lace-up shoes, and the shoelaces were broken. And I remember that. I remember the mortician that brought the hearse out, or the ambulance, I guess you'd call it. He pointed that out, but it was just horrible. I mean, but anyway, and I'm not doing this to be a depressing story so much as to relate to you the way things were in 1957 in South Texas, USA. I mean, there we were on a little farm. We may have had well, we did have a phone, but it was an 8-party line, and that meant that there were 8 other people on that same line, and our ring was 2 shorts. In other words, the phone would go ring ring, and that was us. And then there was a long and a short, and then there was 2 longs, and there was 3 longs. I don't know. I mean, it was like a code, but you knew which ring was yours. But what you could do, whenever it stopped ringing, if you wanted to listen in on the conversation, you just pick up the phone. Of course, now they could hear that click, so they knew somebody was on. But I remember talking to this little girl in town that I was in love with, and I'd be talking, and I'd hear these click, 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 people picking up, either to make a call, because the way you made a call back then, you didn't have a rotary dial phone. You picked up the phone, and the operator came on, and she'd say, "Number, please." And my cousin, Patsy Sue Tucker, was a telephone operator in Kennedy, Texas. And whenever you'd give her the phone number, she'd pick up these little wires and stick them in a hole, and that would connect you with something. I don't know how exactly all that worked, but that's just how much things have changed. There certainly weren't any smartphones. We didn't have a flat screen TV. We didn't have a TV. We finally got one later on that weighed about 60 pounds and it had a screen about like this. I used to sit and watch the test pattern because there wasn't anything on that we could get with an antenna out in the country. And but anyway, things have really changed. I'm age 71, okay, age 71, and I've seen a lot of changes. And I remember when I was like 20, I'd listen to my parents and grandparents talk about the way things were when they were growing up. They were riding horses. They had old horse and carriages. They pulled plows with horses. And I thought, well, man, we're super modern. We've got tractors and all this kind of stuff. And, now the tractors we had back then, no one would even consider using them because now the tractors, they can do 1,000 acres in a day. You know what I mean? Or a lot. I don't know how much exactly, but, they're big and they're expensive as hell. But anyway, life on the farm back then was really fascinating. We lived a good life. I lived as free as a bird, and all of that contributed to make me me, because there were no rules. No, my parents were not. They. It wasn't that they weren't strict. They just expected you to do the right thing, and to make the right decision, and to stay out of trouble. And I did. I mean, we just did it naturally. I don't remember anybody ever trying to beat it into us. But, well, you knew. In fact, you never interrupted adults when they were talking, ever, ever. It was yes, sir, yes, ma'am, 100% of the time. and you never miss that. And my parents could do more with a look than they could with a word. You know what I mean? My dad could, if he turned his head and looked at you, that's all you needed to know. Because if you got in trouble, if you really screwed up, which I did a few times, so did my brother, you had to go cut your own switch. What that meant was you had to go to a mesquite tree, find a limb about as big around as your thumb, and he preferred the ones that were about 2 feet long, and he whipped you on the back of the thigh, on the legs, and he'd just give you a couple of pops, but that was enough because they were good pops, and that burned it into your memory forever. But anyway, I just thought I'd reminisce a little bit for some of those people that enjoyed that kind of crap, and but and for you people that are young, I don't know how many young viewers I have, maybe not many, but for those of you now that have been born in an era where there's smartphones and flat screen TVs and super fast computers and all this stuff that we have, you think that's the end all. And I have to tell you, it's just beginning, because what will happen is, as you get older, stuff's going to change, probably faster than when I was growing up, much faster probably. And you're going to look back one of these days talking to your kids or whatever, you're talking about the good old days or whatever, and it's going to be amazing the things that have changed, because I start talking about this right now and I think about those old cars. No crumple zones, just like tanks. I'm telling you, they were built with iron, and no safety at all. If it hadn't been for Ralph Nader, we would have a lot of things. But anyway, this has gone on long enough. This is TC, okay? It. And he is my only presence right now. And I have to tell you, do I talk to TC? You bet I do. And he's my buddy. TC, Sir Trenton Clump. What a wonderful name. And he came with papers, so he's, I guess you'd say, registered, maybe. Anyway, y'all have a good day. I just didn't have anything to do. And it's getting close to beer 30, so thumbs up, carpe diem, adios. Y'all enjoy your day, enjoy your week. Thank all you guys that have subscribed recently and all you people that do subscribe. If you have a comment, anything you'd like for me to do a video on, post a comment. I'm always open to ideas, believe me. Again, thanks a lot. You guys have a great day. Bye. Oops. Thumbs up, carpe diem, adios. Bye-bye. I'm almost getting old. I forget my own ritual.